You good?
Hey man, I haven't done my hair and makeup yet. Hold up.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here, the BABL squad. We're here for pod episode 15. To my, I don't know if people see this, it's relative on the screen, but down here is my main man, Lawrence, Mr. Green. How are you?
I'm doing good. What's good, kings and queens?
And then to my left, we're like the Brady Bunch circle, but to my left, we got Will E. Nelson, not the country singer, but yeah. So Will, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and well, first off, thank you for coming on and taking the time out just to share your story and just just everything you do as a Black creative entrepreneur. We're really excited to hear your story. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about who you are, and just no relation to the country singer.
No doubt. So I'm Willie Nelson. Been in Richmond on and off, going on probably about 6 years now. Originally grew up Orange, Virginia, out in the country. My whole thing is visual storytelling. So I do a lot of photo, video, content work. Always kind of had this kind of like go-getter attitude about work and trying to find it in places where you usually can't find it. Another thing that I'm really into following like the economy, seeing how all that works. I do trade some stocks, been doing that for about 3 years now. And then this has all been really interesting because, it's hard to find a lot of folks like us in that space. So it's been definitely a journey kind of exploring that and seeing how that all works out. But overall, I like getting into things.
Word. That's a perfect segue. You're mentioning you've been, stock trading for about 3 years. Not many people in our lifetime get a feature in a newspaper or publication. You have had 2 in the Wall Street Journal. So tell us a little bit how that came about. And kudos to you, man. That's a big deal.
It's really crazy. It's really crazy. So we had our COVID-19 shutdown, and so I'm at home every day. I'm at home. I do work. My free time, I was like going out on the porch. Like following stocks. Trading. I go on like these Facebook groups to talk about it with people because it wasn't a whole lot of interaction going on anywhere. And one day in April, I get this DM from this woman named Caitlin saying that, she'd like to talk to me and she's doing this article. I mean, I thought it was somebody spamming me at first. I didn't. kind of sketchy. So we set up the call and, she had a New York number. And I do the call. She gives me this interview and like, what's your background? I go through that. How did I get into it? Go through all that. And she's like, well, that all sounds great. I think you'd be a good fit. What I'm trying to do is find someone to, put in this Wall Street Journal article on new traders in the stock market. And I was just like, sounds really good. And she's like, I got to run it by my my editor and like the team's got to approve it. So I'm kind of like, yeah, this is not going to pan out. Like really out of all the people in the world, you want this random dude in Richmond, Virginia, just like trading stuff on his phone from his back porch. She's like, nobody. Like, yeah, I'm really going to get picked. Well, come to find out I was.
Yeah, that was wild. And I remember,
so,
you were like, yo, I remember you came to my cubicle. You're like, yo, this is happening. I was like the Wall Street Journal, and like, yeah, you showed me. I was like, yo, that's wild. And for it to come to fruition twice, like within a couple months of each other, is like.
And for the article and the video, I never had to leave my house once for it. So the photos for that article, they sent out a photographer from DC to take pictures of me like just out on my front porch. You know, the video I did in this exact same spot, exact same backdrop. And so it was kind of, you know, throughout everything going on the last couple months, you know, this is like the silver lining there that just happened to line up in a certain way, right place, right time. So you had to be looking and reach out to this guy. He's got this good story, like, oh, we'll put him in. And then, you know, hey, I got a friend doing a video on a similar topic. Would you be willing to do that? I'm like, yeah, for real. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then it just happens.
Hey, that's what's up, man. And shout out to you. That's a huge deal. So and you were mentioning a second ago just how, you know, for lack of a better word, how there's a lack of diversity in like the finance, entrepreneurship, you know, fields. How have you been able to like stay true to who you are just as a Black man, but at the same time not letting what am I trying to say? You know how like at times there could be like the stigma, like, oh, you know, if it's a Black creative or a Black entrepreneur, there's a certain quality that might be missing or what have you. And how have you been able to, which I'm not saying is right by any means, like it's completely wrong, but it's unfortunate, just on a global, like a macro level, that could be the case. How have you been able to stay true and in the midst of all that, and just, you know, prove to the naysayers that, you know, Black folks can make quality products and are talented, are creative, and if not more than their white counterparts? I know that's a long question, but.
Yeah, so the first place I noticed that, or the first situation I experienced that, was when I was at VCU. You know, I was in their venture creation, like undergrad certificate program. So that's like basically like their business school for like if you wanted to do a startup, or you wanted to become an entrepreneur, or if you had a good idea and you wanted to do something with it. That was the space I first felt some pushback. You know, like the idea I put out, you know, I got pushback on that. You know, it's scalable. And then the general startup environment is very not diverse. Mm-hmm. The people, the venture capitalists, the people who, you know, give this startup 20 grand to start their business or whatever, there is definitely a lot of, well, I know these people from family, or I know these people because, you know, my dad works with them or something, or like there's connections there to get that capital, you know, that access to capital from startup culture and all that. So I kind of fell out that group after a couple of years. I was like, there's really no place for me here. And that's when I started going more like the direct entrepreneur route, you know. So, you know, my first like retainer client as a videographer, that came from a Craigslist post in Virginia Beach. And I think this is maybe winter 2018. I'm like desperate for work. You know, I'm unemployed at the time. I'm just searching everywhere I can to find something. And so I stumble on this real estate thing, and there's two guys, you know, they're starting their, trying to like spin off and do anything for real estate. Well, I ended up sending them my portfolio, like photos, videos, do a little write-up, you know, get a phone call, discuss it out. They like the stuff. They asked me what my rates were. I sent them, and they said, okay, that looks good. Can you come out this weekend? And I kind of regretted it because I probably could have charged more, but you know, the first one. And that's how I landed that real estate gig, just doing their story and how they came to be. And they actually ended up being two Jamaican guys who were doing it. But throughout that initial process, they didn't know what color I was. and I had no idea what color they were. So I guess one of the ways around that, as like a Black creative, those initial steps, they really should be judging you on your work. And like, that's the power of like, you know, photography portfolio, video portfolio, you know, your writing portfolio or whatever. There's a position available or a gig available, your work alone should show that you can do it or not.
Right.
You know, now you'll have times when people will pull back after that, you know, interview. And I've had that with jobs. I roll in and I'm not what they're expecting. Like, this is Willie Nelson, the creative. Really? Oh, nice to meet you, sir. Funny anecdote on that. I did get one job that I made through the phone, aced it, got to the first interview, and you know, not a diverse team at all. You know, I was the only person of color in there. And then the reason I got rejected from that job, it's like, you usually get your experience is not a right fit, your skills weren't a right fit. The only reason I got was I was not a good cultural fit. And that stuck with me for the longest time.
Cultural fit? It's like,
really, the job description, what I do matched up perfectly. Like, they were stoked about it until they met me. And that was like the one thing that stuck with me. I was like, really? Not a good cultural fit.
So it's like, what are they really trying to say? If it's not a diverse company, like, what are y'all really trying to say? That's disheartening.
And you know, some of these smaller businesses out here, they don't have, I guess legally they do, but they don't have those same like, you know, laws or mandates or boards watching them where they have like a quota, or, you know, there's an initiative at the company to try to hire more diverse people. These small businesses out there, if it's like under 20 people, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
That's one thing I kind of got resistance from, but where I found my biggest success is like, you know, I didn't turn down work. I never wanted to do wedding videography at the beginning, but there's opportunity there. There are people who are looking for folks to do that at a professional level, but a little bit cheaper. Couldn't quite afford the person who does it full time, so I could cut that price a little bit. And then once you do that a couple times, your price starts going up and up and up because you got that portfolio to show. And that's really how you have to build it.
Yeah.
With any kind of like, you know, creative entrepreneurship work.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point, you know, about the not being a cultural fit, so which is crazy to me. So my parents admitted, you know, growing up that they picked my name because, you know, it's kind of like racially ambiguous because you wouldn't know who you know, what race I am by looking at my name. And I've had similar situations where, like, you know, get called in for an interview and I show up and it's like the the little startledness, like, what?
You can see it, that first reaction, like, oh, Sterling.
So that's definitely happened before. So it just is interesting. Yeah, I've just learned, just, you know, working in corporate America, it's just like, it's never like overt. It's like those microaggressions, which really are just like micro versions of like prejudice. And I would even go as far as to say like racism. It's like, unfortunately, it's still there. Like, it's still like embedded, you know, even though, you know, different companies are making strides and what have you. But that, and Lawrence, feel free to jump in whenever. But I had just tying into the element of, you know, social change and equity and what have you. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, it took a Black man being murdered, you know, and it was recorded. And that's really the only reason that this resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the national outcry happened, in my opinion. But, you know, you had your various corporations responding, you know, changing their social avatars and icons, you know, solidarity, these hot button words. And, we're months removed from that, and you just see them slowly changing back, slowly getting back to their niches or whatever. So for Wolf, for you, what do you think it would take for these companies to really ingrain equity and to really be about what they're posting about long term, as opposed to being so reactive?
I think it's going to have to come from within. And I'm not talking about the CEOs or the board members or anything like that. That's going to have to come from their employees. And not only the employees of color, some of the white employees as well are going to have to be able to take that step or be able to be that kind of ally to push that at their organization. Because if it's coming from inside and the managers feel that pressure, that's going to make its way up to the top. That this is becoming an issue or people are upset about this, then it becomes a thing where they have to address it. If it's outside of their company and the company's doing fine and they're not worried about it, then it can get forgotten, swept under the rug. That's where a lot of these problems came in is, no one wanted to be canceled or no one wanted to be called out on Twitter. So that's when you get all these statements from everybody. We support Black Lives Matter and we're here to be there for the change and we are committed to diversity. Never any specifics on what they'll actually do to address it, but they support us in the struggle, To get it past that, it kind of has to be this internal pressure in the company, and they can, from the inside, people can push it.
100%. And I've never gotten so many emails. Like, I'm getting emails from like ice cream companies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we stand in solidarity. We'll have more flavors of ice cream. You know what I mean? It's like, and it was just getting crazy. Like, I think at one point I saw on Twitter, folks are considering changing the name, master bedroom. So they're thinking of changing that. And I'm like, y'all are missing, actors. Like, I think it was some white guy. I think he plays Cleveland or what have you in the Cleveland show and Family Guy. So I've decided, to take a step away from this character. A Black man should be playing this role. I'm like, bro, you can say that after making millions of dollars, you know what I mean, off of this show, but I don't know, man. It just, I feel like it got almost laughable after a while. I was like, all right, y'all are really just doing this to come.
You guys are doing it for the headline. You're not doing it to help people of color or Black people. You're doing it for the headline. Oh, wow. They're just so thoughtful and they're just sacrificing that for somebody else. Wow. Like, our lives haven't changed.
Meeting our demands. Like, it's crazy.
My question is your studio hiring more Black animators now? Like, like there's more people on the staff? Is there more diversity in the staff? Like, that's what I'm wondering,
I feel like, and I like how you mentioned it comes from the inside a little bit too. I think it comes from both a little of the outside and the inside, right? Because I'm thinking about an event we had just simply at the hospital that I work, and we had like this little vigil for George Floyd. And one of my coworkers who's Black, rolled up on the president of the hospital and was just like, we need more of this, that, and the third. Like, we need, like, this was like, who was here for this? It was just like, woo. And, it startled her because she's just like, they always, the head boss is just walking around with nice clothes on looking prestigious, you know what I'm saying? They go into the big meetings and they come during that 1 hour of the day, how you doing? Hello. And it's just like, it takes that one person to roll up on your boss and then the next week later we see book clubs getting started, safe spaces being for you hop on Zoom and get on this safe space call, and then I heard they want to make her like one of the spokesperson people, And so you definitely see these changes, but then you ask yourself, are some of these changes that we're seeing really going to be effective, or really be something that does something for us? We talked about all these different changes that were made, but the main one we want is just arrest the police that killed Breonna Taylor. Like, you know,
I
the
mean, first
main
of
point.
all, like that first step one, that's step one, you know.
It's just like you're doing all these little things that ain't got nothing to do with what I'm asking you to do.
It works all the way around and we still missing the issue.
And so it's just like, you know, I think that that's a big major. And I think moments like this with the outside is like when we all are like, when it's global and when it's just like we can hit your pockets, because this is just as much in your face, but just on a social media global scale.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you just gotta roll up on these bosses, roll up on these CEOs, roll up on your boss.
Pull up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes. You gotta have that first person who's willing to, you know, take that risk and put their neck on the line. And then once that kind of happens, it's like, oh, they didn't get fired, they're still there.
Right.
You have all those other people who've been thinking about it, but been kind of afraid to say anything, and they start easing in. And you got some of the other people who are like, I didn't even think about it, but, you know, they're kind of right. You know, and then once you get the group going, then you got a force, right?
And the meeting an hour long, and it was only supposed to be 15 more minutes.
But hold up, I got something to say.
And another thing.
Oh, man, 100%. What was I? Because yeah, and you know, rest in peace to John Lewis. Like, you know, his whole concept of good trouble is, no major movement or change happened in comfort. You know what I mean? So think of the civil rights movement, like perfect example. It's like the midst of Jim Crow, they're literally like quote unquote rebelling or opposing like the law of the land. You know what I mean? Like segregation was what it was back then. And they just shook the table. You know what I mean? If the table, we would have the opportunity. We wouldn't even have the opportunity to complain about microaggressions in, you know, predominantly white spaces and what have you. So, you know, I think it's always, I always believe like in that John Lewis quote, just getting in good trouble. You know, I know that wasn't verbatim, but
I mean, you know, at that time when he was doing all that, he wasn't celebrated as, you know, the hero. He wasn't, you know, talked about on the news, you know, this great civil rights leader. You know, right. At the time, people were sitting there watching whatever news show and like, wow, look at that rioter, look at that protester causing trouble, and
right.
You know,
a
whole different thing. Now we're looking at it in retrospect. People change their viewpoints on that a lot, but at that time,
yeah,
you know, he had dogs picked on him, so it was no joke.
Right, and I saw that, you know, I forgot where I read this, but like MLK at like the time of his death had a 25% approval rating. 25. So it's like it's that, and then even more recent, like during John Lewis's going away service, his commemoration, I think Bill Clinton was like commending John, how he was more quote unquote PC as opposed to, you know, Kwame, you know, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, if I'm not, yeah, Stokely Carmichael. And it was just like, it was just done in poor taste. Cause I'm like, you're looking in retrospect and it's kind of like smearing Kwame's legacy, you know what I mean? Like with the Panthers and don't get me started there, how like that, how they essentially got washed out, like, you know, Reaganomics era, Reagan era, the crack epidemic, that's all related, but we won't go there because.
What's that song? Who's it by? You know, The Message?
Say again?
The Message?
What about The Message?
Oh, what's that song? What's the artist?
Oh,
from like, the 80s.
The Fab Five? Like the song that came out in the 70s?
I don't remember. Super popular song, but it's a song and he's breaking down what's going on in his neighborhood. He's talking about the crack epidemic. He's talking like, this was during the recession. And this is what made me actually go look this up. But this was during like the recession in the 80s, and there's like double digit and inflation and unemployment numbers. And he literally goes in and talks about like the discrepancies, the inequalities or whatever, and, people being forced into crime or whatever. But what just shocked me on that is like that's come up again. But
yeah, and the song, is it Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five?
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
So all my hip hop friends, they're gonna be like shaking their heads at me. Guys, I said like Furious 4 or whatever, but.
Yeah, I was just listening through it because I gotten so bored, shut down on the weekends. I was just going through like, different playlists or whatever, and I was sitting there. I was like, oh, I've heard this. It's been on a bunch of movies or whatever. I'm listening to the lyrics. And I started feeling a certain kind of way. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, like we're 30 years down the road. We're still kind of going through this right now. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up.
And they put the medicine in the candy, like, that's what I appreciate about hip hop. Then I'm not trying to be like, oh, they don't make that hip hop, they don't do that down there. But songs like The Message was like, because I'm sure y'all are aware, but like in the 70s, 80s, like New York, I think essentially went bankrupt, at one point in time, and, crack was running through those neighborhoods, and I believe like major highways split up the city, and that's how like the birth of the projects happened, and
that's when this came about.
Yeah, so it,
like segregation part 2.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, and like for those who say like, you can, that basically all Black folks, especially those in like low income communities, can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and, make it, so-and-so made it out the hood or so, what I mean? And it's like, you got to think of how many people are in those communities. And that's one of like, out of a fraction of folks. It's like, it's just not that easy. Like they're just literally systemic things in place. Public housing, like lack of urban development, lack of, healthy and wellness resource, because, there are corner stores in every corner of those communities. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's different things.
Everything's set up for exploitation.
Yeah.
In that situation. And then who owns that corner store? It's not other Black people.
Exactly.
Who owns the payday loan shop that's ripping people off, 40% interest on a loan they know you can't pay back? Like who makes money off of that? The used car dealer,
Right.
It's not going back into the community.
100%. Yeah. And it's sad because it's like, unfortunately, it's dope. Like the whole, your WSJ feature and, with that being based off, your background in finance and even picking it up on your own is just inspiring to see that like, we're breaking that mold that, we don't know how to manage our money or we don't know our money. So we're changing that narrative, you know what I mean? And I think that's only gonna to trickle down. And I think just in the age of the internet and just having, all your resources literally at your fingertips, I think it's only gonna help set our generation and, future generations on the right foot, despite, all the systemic oppression in our past.
No doubt. No doubt. And I'm gonna bring this back to earth a little bit and go a little bit into the reason of why I started getting into, finance, housing, how money works, how all credit works, how all that stuff works. Back in 2018, I lost my mom to cancer. Mm-hmm. And so, there's all that goes along with that. It's trying times. But what happened was, is, you know, I'm a child, only child. And so a lot of that paperwork and, you know, the mortgage and all those things kind of fell in my lap to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really have anyone easily accessible to really give me any guidance on it. So that's when I went to, you know, how does a 30-year mortgage work? What is mortgage insurance? Like, I'm reading these things, I have no idea what they are. So just start clicking away at them one at a time, you know, like, what is your equity in a home? What does that even mean? Like, what is equity as a financial thing? What does that mean? And then as I start looking into all of that, you start picking up on a lot of things. But, you know, it's not taught to you in school. You know, a lot of times, you know, my grandparents didn't have a house to pass down to my mother. So she did that on her own to get that house. Once she got a job, built herself up in her career where she could even qualify for something, because it's harder for us to qualify even if we got the same income, same credit, just because like the job interview. So there's not a lot of history there. Like, that knowledge doesn't get passed down because that asset, that wealth is not always there to pass down. So when you come to it, you almost have to, like, you know, go figure it out on your own, you know? And that's something that just doesn't get factored into, like, how we do policies or, you know, lifting people out of poverty or whatever. That never gets factored in. It's like the financial literacy. It's like, how am I going to know about wealth management, asset management, if my family never had that to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, how to invest your money or whatever. There's no time for that. It's like, how are we going to get these bills paid? How is rent going to get paid? So that is part of the energy that made me jump into that, because, you know, I won't lie, it's not inherently exciting to, you know, watch what the Federal Reserve is going to say on the economy. They had a meeting today. I'm watching that. My friends are like, dude, what are you even talking about? Like, what do you mean the GDP forecast? That doesn't mean anything to me. But once you realize, like, having that knowledge can really help you plan out what you want to do financially and be able to strategize. And so things, you don't feel like things come at you like, oh, we're in a recession and, like, unemployment's high. Like, didn't see that coming. It allows you to, like, know something's coming.
Straight jam.
How much does being a creative play a role in being an entrepreneur?
I think being a creative, I think you have that edge, and that you're not always stuck on things have to be this certain kind of way, or it has to work in this kind of way, you know. If you're, you know, if you're an accountant or something, or more direct kind of job or something like that, like you have to get the job, you know, you get the internship, the job, and then work your way up or whatever, or get this certification or whatever. But being a creative, there's a lot of different ways to get your foot in the door. You know, my background in school was psychology. My degree has nothing to do with what I do for a living. And the way I got there was literally just by doing stuff for my friends for free. You get paid $20 to go do something, $50, the portfolio builds up, and then you work your way up to, now I get salary to do it. And now I do it on the side, freelance. So I encourage people to get creative with it. You know, if that's going on Craigslist and there's somebody who has a jewelry shop and they need marketing help or something, it's like, hey, well, I can take good photos, or I can write up a post for you, and you make that behind the scenes indirect offer. And the worst thing they're going to say is no. You do it 10 times, somebody might say yes, and look, you have income. There's something coming in. And you do that one time, you can go approach another jeweler or whatever. And then you do that a couple of times, and you can go approach the one in Virginia Beach. And so you can kind of build it out that way. And so that's kind of my claim to ever doing anything creatively where somebody would pay me for it. It didn't start that way. I wasn't like natural born photographer or something. I just kept doing it. And then I think with creatives, or if you're passionate about writing or anything like that, you like what you do enough to do it on the side on top of your job. You know, I worked at a cookie company for a while during college. I've worked a lot of random jobs or like internships, and I was still doing camera stuff on the weekends and the evenings. And sometimes it feels like work depending on what it is, but sometimes I just did it for fun. But that whole time you're building up a portfolio, whether that's your blog, whether it's your podcast, your video series, whatever it is, you're building that portfolio up. So then when you do go try to get a job or a gig somewhere, you have something to show. Like, oh, I don't have the degree, but here is the thing you're exactly looking for because I've already done it. Is that what you want? And then they'll see it and say, oh, yeah, that is exactly what I'm looking for. So you get to bypass some of the, you know, where did you go to school, or like, what was your GPA or your transcript? It's like, no, I can show you what I can do. And I think that's really powerful and something creatives should definitely take advantage of.
And then I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad about a year ago. And one of the segments something that he talked about in the book was like, a lot of times we work these jobs, these 40 hours a week plus, and we think, you know, I need more money in this particular time period or season. Let me work more hours, rather than being creative, right? Well, no quotations, rather than being creative and coming up with ways of finding income and doing that. So what would be your advice who may be listening or reading your stuff and they'll be like, well, I'm not like Will, or like, I don't consider myself a creative. Like, how do we start shaping our mind frame, in your opinion, towards allowing ourselves to birth forth income for us rather than working jobs we just hate working at?
Man.
No joke. I'll say, you know, for a one fun anecdote, you know, I had a guy drive by on a truck a couple weeks ago, and he just yells out, it's like, hey, do you need your grass cut? You know, I do the first one for free and the second one $50 or whatever. Like, literally just dude driving by. You know, I'm in Northside, and a week later I had a guy come by and give me his car because he does haircuts. Just literally driving through. And if I happen to need one that day and I don't have to leave my porch to do it, I would have hit him up for it. But for everything that there is a service out there or anything like that, I mean, there's opportunity. It's just a matter of if you're willing to get those 200 cards printed for $6 and do something out of your comfort zone. That's like drive around the neighborhood and find somebody. You can't find anybody on the internet. You don't know anybody. It's just ask some random people. You never know. But, you know, another way to kind of get additional income without working the extra hours is like, that's where like some of the financial literacy stuff comes in. It's like looking at how you spend your money. If you can cut certain things, if you can cut $50 a month, well, there's ways that you can invest that are relatively safe. You know, there's always be risk, but you can invest that. And, you know, if you'd invested, I don't know, $100 in the S&P 500 after it crashed in just this March, to now, I think the market's up, I don't know, 20-something%. So that's $1,000. You just literally, you took your stimulus check and just chucked it in the stock market. Well, you would now have an extra $200, $300 in there, and that multiple goes up. And there's like some really like basic, like easy things you can do like that. And it's incremental, but that's the law of compounding interest, is that the incremental catches momentum. It's just like doing work for free and getting paid a little bit. You got to really think incrementally, because you're sitting there like, man, I wish I had some extra money. It's not going to happen like that. You're not just going to have an extra grand that week because you want some extra money. You know, it's incremental, but you got to keep it. You keep that rolling, then you get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, I got a little bit coming in.
Where were you at when I was on Robinhood a few months ago? Because the stress level of trying to be, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, let me save. It's just like, I'm like,
it keeps going down.
It keeps going down. You're trying to make fast cash. If you try to be a city girl on Robinhood, it's not gonna work for you.
100%. Yeah, it's
the thing about stocks is there's a couple things you can do that's kind of safe. You can throw money at it. That's not going to make you the fastest money. To make the really good money, I mean, you gotta kind of keep up with some things. You got to know when that economic data leaks. It's like, what's the new unemployment number or whatever. You gotta look out for some of that stuff.
Yeah. My God, I got a story real quick. So there was this one stock that my friend had hit me up because, you know, we're playing around on Robinhood or whatnot. And so she's like, there's this stock that Amazon is getting ready to buy out at like at 9 o'clock. They're getting ready to have a business meeting. And so, right, so everybody and their mom is buying. It's mad cheap. It's like mad cheap. So I'm like,
all in.
I'm like, put all the money in here. Give them all the money. And I see a straight line, right? So I'm at work, my big dummy butt. And so she's like, not like letting me know like what's the updates and stuff is going on. So they had that 9 o'clock meeting. They didn't bring up Amazon. And just as quickly as it went up, it dropped faster than you can say.
No. You see that dollar value keep going lower and lower.
If we go through my Robinhood, it's literally like, I was like, sell everything, get rid of it all. I was like, wow. Oh my God. It is like an experience trying to do that stuff. It'll just switch up on you overnight and you just have to have a good old time.
Quick.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, there's people that when you get into that level, you're gambling. You're gambling on that stuff. If you're gonna bet on some like rumors or like, oh, they might have a vaccine, they might not, but I think they are. If they do, it's gonna blow up. Nah. You're not investing at that point. You gambling. You gambling.
Oh my God,
that's funny.
That's wild. I've had a couple moments like that.
Oh, I made my first $50 off of Robinhood once. This was a long time ago. It's probably gone now, but it was I had like, because I was just getting into it and they were like, you know, right when COVID stuff was happening, and so I was just like, well, maybe I can like look into stuff like at work that we use or something that I can do. So I looked at like our gloves, right? And I invested in them. It was a little small thing. And then it ended up like doing really well one day. I bought it, sold, like it went up, bought it, sold it out, woo. And I was like, yeah, y'all, I just gained my first $50. And it was just like, I was looking around at my job and the people, the company that we use for our gloves, they was like, you know, that's illegal, right? I was like, wait, what? Like, I guess like, you know, when you already hip to what you're doing within your particular company, you're not supposed to be investing money. I was like, ooh.
Insider trading?
I was like, well, I ain't gonna do it no more. I mean, I ain't never did it again.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know. That's my first time. It's only $50. Don't worry.
It's only $50. Y'all got that. So,
yeah, then I coming after you until you get touching millions. Then that raised some red flags.
Well, praise God, because I was like, it's gone anyway. So
that's great. That's gold.
Oh my goodness. What'd you say, Sally?
Is that called insider trading? Is that what it is?
Yeah, insider trading. Because you would know information before the public knows it.
Right. I'm just trying to use something that we gonna use. I'm just trying to look. They was like, look around, you know, look at the stuff in your life. I'm at work. 40 hours a week, so I'm looking around.
You know what I regret more than anything is not dumping every dime I had onto what we're on right now, Zoom.
Oh, I got
right.
It went up over 100% since March. Like it exploded.
I got it at
like ridiculous.
I got it at like I think it was like 130 something. I only have one share, but now it's like almost 300. It's like it was like 277 the other night.
Damn,
and it's only gonna go up.
Yes, yes sir. What was that?
It's like,
but yeah, you know, a lot of trading stocks and some of investment stuff. A lot of it is like thinking, you know, is COVID going to be around for another 3 months? What's everybody still going to be using? We're all still going to be using Facebook. We're all still going to be using Zoom. You know, we're still going to be on our Spotify or whatever. It's things like that too, you know. If everything's closed down, well, people are still going to be going to Kroger. Kroger get real good during the crash because people are still buying groceries.
Yeah,
so you got to do a little bit of prediction.
Right. For sure, like the airlines and everything, like they're, you know, it's only a matter of time before they. Yeah, it's
like I didn't go to the DR this summer or anywhere else this summer. I'm not investing in American Airlines this summer. Like, if I'm not gonna get on that plane, I know no one else now. I'm gonna get that one alone.
Oh my god.
I hear you. Yeah, it's a game, man. It's a game for sure. So what? Yeah, just to wrap up here. So what? It's a two-parter. So what do you hope, or how do you hope to give back in the future? You know, once it's all said and done, and also words of advice for, you know, up and coming entrepreneurs and creators.
Let's see. The anecdote I want to share is, you know, I went to a private high school up in Warrenton, Virginia, which is, you know, that's like horse country. There's a lot of upper middle class money going there, you know. Your friends' parents are doctors, lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, as the only Black person in my class, you know, I kind of had to get used to, you know, being the only Black person in the room. And I had to get comfortable with that. And I did, to a certain extent, get comfortable with that. And now I've been able to translate that into, you know, you scroll through the Wall Street Journal video section and there's no other Black person there. Or, you know, you're going to the wedding videography scene or whatever. I don't know anybody named Black wedding videographers. They're out there, but I don't know them by name. They're not the ones that come up on that first search list. So to push things forward, you can't be afraid of being the only one in the room. You know, the first Black congressman or congresswoman, like they were the first one. There's nobody else there. I mean, there's isolation that goes with that. I mean, it's not rosy to be the first Black X, right, or be the first Black woman to do X. I mean, it's not nice at the beginning of that. There's the accomplishment is like, I made it, and then you got to live it a little bit. Then it's like, man, this is feel a little isolated here. But until that first person does that and then like breaks that ceiling, by breaking that ceiling, you make that entrance way for everyone else. Whether it's just because they didn't think they could do it until they saw someone else do it, or if it's literally a structural thing that no one's been allowed through, just by you breaking through that opens up the door for others. So I mean, that could be anything. It could be work. It could be whether it's an organization, whether it's a board. I mean, whether it's politics. You know, we look at President Barack Obama. You look at potentially having Kamala for VP as president. I mean, for vice president. I mean, that sets the narrative. Then it's like, you know, Black girls out there can say, oh, I could be president, vice president. I mean, that is at least possible, that I can, at 9, 15, 30, whatever it is, I can at least set that as a goal or as a vision and work towards that. And I don't have to think, well, that's just a dream, it's impossible. So I think that is really, on an individual level and in our own things, you need a little extra motivation, that could be something. That's something I definitely inspires me. It's like, I'll be I'm the only Black person in the room. It's like, I'm going to be there in spite of that. You know, I'm going to make sure I show up to that event to show up. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like a two-parter question aficionado, but the second part was, how do you plan to give back, you know, in the future, once you've established yourself? Like, how do you hope to give back, particularly to, like, you know, Black and brown creatives and entrepreneurs? And I'm gonna cut the light on, so I'm not leaving, but I'll be right back.
You're only dipping out on us. Let's see how it is. Want to go buy some Zoom stock? I'm on to you. So I think to like, you know, the creatives, the entrepreneurs out there, you know, getting out there, sharing what's kind of worked for me, giving that knowledge out. Try to prepare people for going into the trenches, because it's really not easy. It's really not easy, especially if you're gonna follow your passion or whatever, anything like that, or follow something creative. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's true, you gotta work hard and grind and kind of find your way through. I mean, that's easy to say, but to actually go through that, there's ups and downs to it. But, you know, giving them that knowledge to kind of like, here's some other avenues to look at things, or, you know, if you're looking for a gig, like there's 20 different sites you can look at. It's not just what's on the job posting. There's ways around that, and how you can network, and sharing some of that knowledge, especially with like the financial stuff, or, you know, like the business stuff, and being able to give that, like, well, here's how you make that first outreach. I'd love to be at a point in my life where I could, whether it's like a blog, or it's through videos, or just doing more interviews, kind of like get that knowledge out there. Because there's people saying it already, it's just, it doesn't hit the same if there's nobody saying it that looks like you. And able to give that, like, I've been to a job interview and I wasn't a good culture fit. You know, I can give you that perspective too, and kind of work that in there. And then another thing I'd say, especially right now, is if you're a creative, or even if you're not creative, something I'm doing is I'm working with somebody who's running for city council. They're in my district, so I'm doing some pro bono video work for them. They're going to literally be doing an event at the laundromat that's like maybe 1,000 feet from my house right now. And I'm going to go take pictures of that and then send it to them, and they can put it on their social, and, you know, use it for the website if they want, whatever they want to do with it to help get the word out. And I'm not a politician, you know, I'm not canvassing or anything like that, but me being able to take that photo for them will help push the campaign. And then, you know, I'm indirectly helping what that campaign is, and the, you know, changes they want to bring to Richmond through City Council, and, you know, some of those initiatives. So it's like, you can be a part of things in that way. You don't have to be the lawmaker, or, you know, looking at the governor or the president, or going at that large of a reach. It could literally just be your council person running for council. It's like, if you have a skill or service or something like that, you don't have money to donate, whatever it is like that, there are ways you can provide value and help the collective cause. And, you know, what more beautiful way to do that than something that you're good at, or something that's your expertise or your skill, and that's your unique way that somebody else couldn't have contributed the same way. So I'd say look for those opportunities. It's not all about how much you can donate to something or whatever. I mean, volunteering to help things out, Even if it has a self-serving element to that, that'll go into my portfolio or something or whatever. And I have to do it on a weekend when I don't really feel like doing it after work or whatever. I mean, that little bit does make an impact. And, at the polls or whatever, or at the votes, that made 5 more people vote and the margin was 5, you can do the math.
Right.
And you get a lot of people doing that, then it's a lot of 5s adding up. But, there's ways that you can leverage your strengths and what you're good at and what you're comfortable with and leverage that to help, your community, your city, your state, and then those all incrementally, the whole thing, the compounding thing, all the way up to the country. There's ways to have an impact. You got to make that ripple out.
Well said. Well said. That's what I admire about you, man. You are a storyteller to like the T. Like that's you. That's you. So shout out to you, man. Like it literally.
I'm gonna tell folks to watch out. You follow me on Instagram, my stories. Like if I get started on something, there's like 20 pages. I'm in it for like 4 hours. I'm breaking it down. Like,
yo, and it's literally like there's like because it'll get to a climax, and he'll just have like the text sometimes, and it'll lead to a video, and then he'll be like, "You remember when I posted this 3 months ago? Well, now it's it's even more. I don't know. It's just like,
oh, you remember that thing I was talking about? Yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, man.
Throw a song in there somewhere that kind of relates to it, and such. I just do that naturally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's boring stuff, man. You don't make it a little bit interesting, you'll lose people.
That's true. But you keep it interesting. But yeah, man, we can wrap up here, and it's tradition here. It's the BABL Pod, where my voice sounded weird. The BABL Pod. We typically, close out with prayer requests. So what we've done is, we'll go around the horn. So 1 to 3 words. So it could be like, what am I trying to say? It could be a theme. So if it's like health, humility, or something like that, it could be that, or it could be a phrase. So, but it has to be 1 to 3 words. So we'll start with Lawrence, and I'll put you on the spot.
I guess my 3 words would be decisions, passion, and peace.
Okay. So, Will, how about you?
My 3, I'm going to say healing, growth, and empowerment.
Those are good. I would say don't fear. This is 4. I just cheated. This is don't fear the thorns. Yeah. So I've been reading Matthew, I think it was 13 or 14. I think it's 13, where it's like talking about the parable of the sower. And I think I'm the 3rd one where it talks about, the plant will grow, but like thorns keep it from growing. So those thorns are like, fear and, wanting to pursue like riches or like a life of grandeur. So like my faith, I can find it always getting stifled by these thorns because I'm like looking out and preparing myself so much, and not being content with the now and like the journey. So I read that. I've read it before, but like for some reason it just slapped me in the face this morning when I was reading it. I was like, all right, I hear you.
It'll happen. You'll hear it before. It doesn't mean much, and then you'll be in that moment where you're like, "Wow, that's actually exactly what I need to hear right now."
100%. But yeah, I definitely keep you all in prayer, man, and because 2020, the way 2020 is going, we all need a little bit of prayer. But yeah,
You know, I'll throw this out there for everybody. You know, at whatever varying level, it's like we're all going through stuff right now. You know, take some time when you need to heal and take a rest. If you got to squeeze it in there, you'll feel like it on a Sunday or something, or Saturday. I got to do this, and this for the week. Sometimes you just take that time to yourself, and then you'll come back so much harder the next day after you get that rest that you won't even regret taking that day off. You're going twice as much, but you can't push yourself to burnout. If you do that, it can all come tumbling down. So when you feel it's getting closer, take that.
Yep.
Take that time. You deserve it.
For sure.
And keep pushing.
Keep pushing. Keep on keeping on. All right, y'all, but stay up like gas prices in the summertime. The summertime is coming to a close. Yeah, stay up. It's all black men on this call. I know how it's like out there. I'm right there in the trenches with you all, but just keep on keeping on. Because we're gonna be we're our generation's next leaders, and we're gonna birth leaders and keep it going. So just keep on going, keep on trucking. It ain't easy.
You don't feel like change is happening? It's probably time for you to start jumping into that field and push it a little bit as much as you can in your own way.
Yep.
That's the first thing I'll tell people. Things aren't happening fast enough. All right, then you lend a hand as well. Go just a little bit faster.
Word. Right. That's right. All right, fellas, but until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt.